You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey Vetrehabbers, it's a Behind the Vet Rehab Practice podcast today with Dawn Jones from Cape Town in South Africa. Now, in these podcasts, we learn from Vetrehabbers from all over the world how they practice vet rehab. They share with us their challenges, their wins, and their losses, and in the hope that we can learn from their mistakes and so that we don't make the same ones that they did. They also share their tips and advice on how they navigate through this crazy world we live in today, and we get a glimpse into their vet rehab life. Now, Dawn shares with us how she set up her practice within an established vet hospital, the pros and the cons of her setup, and how she opted for a different setup for her second branch. Dawn has been in the field of vet rehab since the 1990s, and she has so much experience. You are all going to learn loads from this one. If you're not already a member, please come and join the largest vet rehabber community on Facebook. We have 4 groups. It's the small animal vet rehabbers, hydro vet rehabbers, equine vet rehabbers, and the business vet rehabbers. This is where vet rehabbers hang out online, share research, tips, and advice, and it's a great supportive community, and we'd love to have you online with us there. So over to my chat with Dawn. Hey Dawn, thank you very much for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for asking. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Dawn, for the listeners, why don't you tell them how you got into the field of vet rehab?
Okay, so I'll go backwards a little bit. I'm 52 years old now, and I first got exposed to veterinary physio at 19. I was riding work in the racing yard, and I was also working as like an assistant vet nurse at an equine clinic in Wilmington in South Africa. And I would meet this lady, Claire. She'd come into the hospital, she'd treat the odd tendon, and then I would see her in the racing yard as well. And I was like, oh, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Oh, that's interesting. Da, 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 da. And so it went along. And I thought, no, like this is really what I wanted to do. Really, really, this is what I want to do. I can't think of anything else that I want to do with my life. But there was like nothing much going on. So I'd always hang around her, ask her questions and things. And then I decided to go to England. I thought, well, there's a bit more going on there perhaps, and I went there. And there were more people working in that field, mostly human physios, only really working on horses. But there was like no training, no formal training. So I shadowed a few people, learned a lot, helped them with creating little courses, and met people, interesting people. And then so I left, I think, in the January, and in the September I get this phone call from Claire saying, Dawn, where are you? What are you doing? We're really busy now. We're 3 human physios working horses. We need someone to help, and we thought about you. So I was back home within 10 days. And I started working for Claire and her colleague. And I'm just so privileged. I basically got a 4-year, old-fashioned training, I can't think of the word now. But
internship or?
That's it, yeah. I worked alongside her and her colleagues for all that time. And then I sort of started to work more independently, but working for them in the team. And yeah, that was the best training I've had in all the years, whatever I've managed to train it. And then I thought, okay, the only possibility is to go into human physio. So off I go to UCT, and I have a interview with the registrar. And I was like so naive. I said, no, I just want to treat horses. But she said to me, says to me, my dear, there is no ways we're going to allow you to come in to do physio when you have absolutely no intention of working on it. So I really stuffed it up. Anyway, I ended up doing a degree it's a long story, another story. I ended up doing a degree in environmental science, but I never worked a day in that. And after I finished that, my husband and I I got married, we went over to the UK, and by that time, so this was 1994, there were courses available. There's the Equine Bodyworker course, and ACPAT was up and about, the association in the UK for physios doing animals. And I just had an amazing experience there, just building up. I decided that I still didn't have enough training, so I did veterinary nursing. So I qualified as a vet nurse at the Royal Veterinary College, and ended up working in various practices. I worked in Newmarket with the racing horses. I had about 120 horses in the yard. They had a pool, they had a solarium, they had a treadmill. They were like really quite on it, like really ahead of themselves. And 120 horses. I worked my ass off, but I learned so much. And then I also had to do some nursing when I did a little bit of nursing. And then I thought, when I did my nursing, I thought, what about the dogs? No one's treating the dogs. And so I ended up lecturing my own class on physio and what physio could offer for dogs. I ultimately opened up a practice in the UK, just freelancing and working for vet practices. And so that was cool. And then I had a young child. And so I kind of stopped working for 2 years. And then we came back to South Africa, and I came back with 2 children. So I wasn't working immediately. And then probably towards the end of, we came back in the year 2002. So around 2003, I think I started in my garage with a little treatment room there, half the garage. And
I remember it.
A little bit more fancy than the rest of the garage. And then both my parents passed away in quite quick succession, and they left a bit of money for us. So I took half of that and put it into the business, and I started renting a space not far from my house, walking distance. But I was very naive. I'm not such a good businesswoman. With just me on my own and rent and everything, the overheads were too high. So that didn't last that long. But wow, I just loved that room, like setting it up, putting my books and having a library. You know how it is.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. And then I sort of went freelance, working just as a mobile therapist again. And then started going to the vet practice and seeing if anybody wants me to work within their practice. And so I think it was 2009 when I started working at Blue Cross, just using their rooms, coming in twice a week, and then building up. And then I went through 4 different proposals with them about how we would build a rehab clinic. So first of all was to find a room that was dedicated to vet physio, and then moving on to buying a treadmill. And now we have a treadmill and the room with a treadmill, and we have 2 other treatment rooms at Blue Cross. I also have a practice at Peninsula Vet, and we also work at Elfin Vet. So just go in and do some work for them in their practice. So I don't know, I've lost the journey here, but that's basically where I am now.
So thanks for sharing all that information. So, I mean, you and I have actually known each other for quite a long time, and a lot of those things that you shared now, I didn't actually know. So let's chat about the practices as they are now. So your practice is called Animal Physical Rehabilitation, right? And
it's Animal Physical Rehab,
Rehab,
okay. APR, yeah.
And what's interesting for me is that you've chosen to set up within veterinary practices, because obviously that's often a choice that we have to make. So a lot of us will start out with being mobile, and then we'd have to decide, like, what do we do? Do we set up within a practice, or do we set up independent of a practice? And there are pros and cons to all of that. So won't you run through the thought process that you had when you decided to set up in a veterinary practice and not independently?
Okay, so I think we have a responsibility to make the vets aware of what we can do and how we can assist as a team. And so I quite like to show off all the dogs that do really well and try and initiate conversation and try and invite them to come in and see what we're doing, obviously to help with referrals as well. But I still think the vets they're not really aware nearly enough in terms of what we can do as a team. We've worked together. So that's been a big push for me. I really want people to know about it. I like having the backup. There's always a vet or a nurse around if we have an emergency, or we just want another opinion, or can they just check this? I'm very big on relationship building, so both with our clients and with our referring vets. So I make a lot of effort in that space. And for me, also physically, to have a safe space to work in. So you have a practice on your own. I used to think about so someone's coming into the practice. I don't know what personality is going to come walk through the door, and I'm on my own. And it's the same with house visits. I don't like us to do a functional assessment at a home. They must come in. And then if we are comfortable, we can go to house visits after that. So that's another point of view. And also you've got a practice that is open all week, 5 or 6 days a week. And so somebody can make contact with somebody, even if we aren't physically on site and working on that day. There's an open communication and availability to clients. So I think those are the big reasons. And also we learn from the vets, and things are changing all the time. What I do find, some days I feel a little bit out of touch with all the new modalities that are coming in. I'm quite old school. I'm very manual orientated. I work with my hands mostly, but there's so many other things going on that are sort of traversing veterinary and veterinary physio that we need to know about. So by being inside the practice, I'm a little bit more exposed to that, and the whole team as well.
And so over the years from when you first opened up the practice, how has the attitude from the vets changed from the beginning to now, because obviously in the beginning it's so new for them. And now you obviously, you're part of the family. And I guess the vets maybe are younger vets coming through, maybe hopefully, I'm hoping, have a bit more knowledge in veterinary rehabilitation.
Yeah, so I think from that point of view, it depends on the individual vet in terms of interest. Male and female response is different, I would say, generally speaking, broadly speaking. Some are extremely interested and completely fascinated and blown away. Some are like, yeah, you just do what you do and we'll do what we do, and not really interested in, chatting to each other about things. And I've most recently had a fantastic situation where I've been working in a practice where every session so far I've had a vet come in and observe and ask questions. And then afterwards we go around and look at the x-rays together and we discuss like, what are we going to do next? Like for me, like, wow, it's like a gold pot. It's like, this is what my dream environment to work in. So long that may that last, but it's that's not so often that it happens that way. And I think also, to be fair, the vets are under huge stress. There's not enough vets around. They're working hard. Their consults are too short, in my opinion. So it's about the individual. It's also about their working environment and their level of energy, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I think working within the vet practice, you have a better understanding now of what it's like to work as a vet. And I think, I see often a lot of questions about, try and get hold of vets and they never get back to me. And, we don't actually, I mean, I know, obviously, having been a vet myself, I know what it's like when it's crazy busy. You literally don't have time to go to the toilet or even eat anything. You're just going from one thing to the next, And so, it's I think you've got a whole lot of knowledge now, knowing what it's like when it's busy, especially when there's emergencies and things coming in. So, but it is great to have that support, and my practice, even though being a vet myself, my practice was next to a vet practice, and the practice that you actually have now at Peninsula is that same area, right?
I know.
You've like taken over. So my clinic, pretty much, I think they knocked a wall.
It's very different. Now. It looks, it's the structure, the internal is very different now.
Yes, yeah. So mine was separate but next door, and now they've knocked a wall through so you can access. But I remember being very grateful to have them next door in case, like you say, there's an emergency. Let's say you have a dog that has arrests or something like that, or has respiratory compromised, or you need oxygen, because those are things that we don't generally have in a vet rehab clinic. You don't have those kind of things. So I never, to be honest, I never had to ever use any of that, but it was always just a comfortable feeling knowing that they were right next door. If I had an emergency, I could run next door. But one of the things I really liked was that I was able to hospitalize patients. So I had an understanding with them that if I had a dog that needed to be hospitalized, that they would take care of that, and then a dog could stay with me for a week. And I would be able to treat it every day. So you obviously have that benefit too, right?
Yeah, we have the opportunity to do that. Yeah, we do. So that's quite nice. And also to get access to post-op cases. So if you're on site, then these dogs are more likely to get some post-op care, whether it's just a bit of laser and soft tissue and beamer, a little bit of, exercise or not, whatever's required. So there's great opportunity there without having to drive somewhere and sort of step in for an hour and then step out.
Yeah.
And I think it's underutilized though.
Yeah, often all the people that I speak to, that are working in veterinary practices, and I think it's just the logistics of trying to get it all together between all the consults. And I think maybe at the big referral practices, they have it works a little bit better when they're just doing operations. So then it's sort of within their protocol. But if you don't have your vets or your surgeon on board completely, then it's only every now and again a case gets treated, right?
Exactly.
Do you find being in a vet practice affects other vet practices referring to you, or is that not something that you found?
It used to be like some of the vets said, there's no ways we're going to refer to you if you go to Blue Cross, for example. But actually it hasn't played out like that, and again, it's about relationship building and trust and, just doing the job. Really, it doesn't really matter under whose roof it is. I think there is benefit to the practice that we work in, because they've just got a client coming through the door who may or may not spend money on in that shop, because most vet practices have shops. And I'm very careful about always referring back to the vet sending the dog back to the vet. Not because sometimes the clients will say, well, can we not just be seen here? I always say it's much better to go to the vet that knows your dog and knows the history. They will be able to, treat at a greater sort of depth and with their knowledge that they have of that dog and that experience and having walked. I really think there's a lot to be said for sticking with your basic vet. When you need a specialist, you need a specialist. But what I do notice has changed over the years is that people will vet hop all over the place. So like when we get a case in, we sometimes have to request history from like 3 or 4 different practices, and maybe one of them's a specialist, but they've been all over. And I think that's always been the case with equine. People have had their lameness vet, and their medicine vet, but I noticed this is something that's changed in small animals.
It's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think maybe it's got to do with maybe they've got a vet who's their favorite vet and then they can't get an appointment and they have a backup vet. But yeah, I mean, when I was in practice, I never found that. So it's obviously a new thing.
It's a newish thing, I'd say over the last 5 years more so. And then when you look at all the notes, you get the clinical notes, and then there'll be a comment like, went to Dr. So-and-so and so, but didn't like that he didn't tell me this. And so they've gone to another vet or something like that. There's some little minor complaint. And so they've just gone to another vet instead of saying, can you just explain that to me better? Or, why didn't you do that? So I don't know. People are funny.
Yeah, I think just generally, I think people are more difficult, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that our expectations of our customer service and customer experience is changed over the years. And I think that's got to do with being online and everything being easy for us to do, right? So like if you think about it now, you can order food online, you can order your shopping online, and it's push, and then it comes and it's right here. So I think that maybe in the veterinary field, we were a little bit behind on the customer experience. And so clients their expectations have, I think, increased. And maybe not all of us are following. We're not there yet. We're sort of still in old school type of where clients are standing outside waiting for half an hour before the invoice comes out or whatever, So I've read a few articles actually on this and how the veterinary field has to catch up. It's like this instant gratification. People want instant gratification. Everything has to happen smoothly, and they're so used to it. They can order things on Amazon and so we actually have to start to have a look at that within our field and make sure that we carry on, because otherwise they get disappointed. So serving people, sometimes we wish we could just treat the animals, right?
Yeah.
But it's always the owners that we have to cope with too.
Yeah, I think that's something I really focus on with our practice. Like, we're not allowed to be more than 5 minutes late for a consult, and otherwise you've got to have a reason, and somebody's got to inform the client that you're running late. And we kind of expect the same from them as well. It doesn't always work out. And then also, I think I used to waitress. Like since I was 14, I was a waitress. And I learned service delivery there, like in terms of making it a good experience consistently. And it has to be consistent. It can't be like good on Monday, not so good on Tuesday. And, we don't get it right all the time, but that's like a key thing for us in our business, in animal physical rehab. I really want the people to have a good experience, because the work we do is very much about relationship building. I mean, you're going to walk an intimate path with these people with a lot of the cases, particularly the sort of the cases that are a bit more complicated, or like it's just long term and you end up seeing them often, and our consult times are quite long. So you end up chatting, and, it's not just like in out, you're just another person. We really have really good relationships. And as a result, people keep coming and they bring their next dog, and the next generation dogs arrive, which I think is a good business policy in the long term.
For sure. So I mean, one thing that you said there is consistency, and that's so important. Do you have a specific system that you follow for each consult and follow-up consult? I mean, do you have like a instruction manual so that everyone has to follow exactly that the same path, or is it just something that's you just do sort of on your own?
So I like the creativity of our team. I like that to come out. I want the independent person to have their own style, but they must still tick certain boxes in terms of, like, particularly on a functional assessment, that's important that we kind of do all the passive range of motion and gait and palpation and feedback to the owner and treatment plan, all that kind of thing. But in terms of their style of treatment, I'm not prescriptive. Some of us are much more inclined to be very manually orientated. Some people prefer to use a modality, electrotherapy or something, or laser within the system. We do offer laser as a standalone treatment. We've got a very nice K laser. And so that's often prescribed for a period of time, and we don't necessarily integrate that into the treatment, but it is the therapist's choice to use electrotherapy if they think it's indicated. It's always a bit tricky around like the charging, of how you charge it, because so it's a little bit uncomfortable, but not always so clear. But I really like each person to have their own style, and then you will find that a particular client will resonate with one more than another, and they'll ask for that person. And you're giving of yourself so much. I don't want to create little robots that are, everybody's doing the same, going through the door. I don't work like that at all.
Yeah, but you've got tick boxes, which is good. So
just a guideline, really, more than a prescription. Yeah.
So how do you charge? Do you have a fixed rate per consult and then additional charges per modality?
Pretty much. So we have like a functional assessment fee, we have a follow-up fee, we have a treadmill fee, we have a fee for laser. So normally a laser that's been prescribed treatment is usually, we allow 30 to 45 minutes. So it depends on the size of the dog, what areas need to be lasered, how we accommodate time to just to let them settle. We're not rushing them through. So I kind of would love to have a fear-free practice. We haven't got it perfectly right yet, but that's what we're working towards. There was a lovely webinar once about that with Dutch woman, Dutch nurse. She was amazing. And I thought, I'd really like us to have one of those, a fear-free practice. So we build that time in. So each modality, if it's a standalone, then it's charged separately, but there are places where we just integrate it in. So for example, a dog comes in for a treadmill. It's actually not a good day for treadmill for him. Something's happened. So we want to offer an alternative treatment and not just send them home and do nothing. So we would perhaps put them on the beamer, do a little bit of soft tissue work and maybe a little bit of laser. Some of them are like, well, let's make a decision. We've got somebody who does bracing. So we have a bracing charge for that, and then plus materials. And that's like a long consult actually to make a bespoke brace. So it's variable, but mostly what we end up invoicing are functional assessments, follow-up therapy, follow-up treatments, underwater treadmill, maybe an exercise session. So it'd be like a 30 minutes exercise session is charged out as such. And then it's not very often that we use the electrotherapy modalities on a standalone basis, but sometimes that's like exactly what that dog needs, and they come in once a week for that.
Okay, so tell us about the practice. So how many people are working there?
I'm so glad you asked me that, because I did think about it. We actually have, I didn't even know, we've got 15 people working between us, not all on site. And I thought, wow, I'm cool with that. So I'm going to tell you what qualifications we've got within the group, because we've got a really diverse group. From ages, we've got a 19-year-old is the youngest, and 52 is myself. So that's our age range. And we've got, like in every block, every 10 years, somebody in that group. Isaac's still with me. He's been with me for 8 years. Awesome. Thank you for all the training you gave him. So we've got 2 CCRP qualified people, one still training in CCRP. We've got 1 vet nurse. I called myself vet nurse, but I don't nurse anymore. Probably couldn't remember how to do all my nursing, but we've got somebody else joining us soon. We've got 4 canine body workers. We've got 1 equine body worker. We've got an occupational therapist with a master's in neuroscience. Like, she's fantastic to have on team. We've got 4 Greyfriars hydrotherapists. We've got somebody with a diploma in animal physio. We've got somebody with a BSc honours in zoology, a BSc environmental science. That's me, it doesn't really count, but still. 1 equilibrium graduate, 1 BA, somebody with BA in communication. We've got a dog trainer, a diploma in marketing, a human physiotherapy student. She's a 2nd year. She just comes to assist in the evening. And somebody with a Bachelor of Social Science, and somebody with education specializing in maths, accounting, and economics. When I was thinking about this conversation we're going to have, I thought, I must just have a look at this. And now, literally, I'm really proud of this crowd. We're so diverse in our approach and our age. We're not diverse in a South African context, unfortunately, as we would like to be. But I'm really proud of this group, and we've got huge creativity. And I think that's important in rehab. You've got to be able to think out the box. Yeah. So lots of different approaches. We're not all being trained the same. We've got huge variations, and we have lots of good conversations. We meet on Mondays, discuss cases, and it's really interesting what comes up when you put us all in the same room. Really nice.
Yeah, I must say that's one of the things I love about our field is everyone coming from different backgrounds, because you can learn from everyone. So even the 19-year-old who has had little experience will come with something,
Yeah.
from their field, So
Yeah.
I love that about our field. So
Yeah.
how do you juggle all that? Have you got a practice manager that manages everyone, or is that your job?
It's a bit messy. I do have somebody who does a lot of the kind of management admin, but it's not really what she wants to do. She's just good at it and has kind of taken it on. So am looking for somebody to fill that space. So at the moment, she and I are sort of covering that. But yeah, it's all a bit messy. I mean, I'm really not a business person at heart. Like it's just developed and it's been required, and I would love somebody else to run the business as such, but I need to find the person who's got the right reason for doing that. I'm not chasing cash. I'm not chasing the profit and things like that. I'm really, as long as everybody's being treated fairly and we're doing okay, and I'm not losing sleep because we might not be able to pay the bills, I'm happy. So,
Yeah.
But I would love to have somebody with good people skills and good business management knowledge to step in and just take that away from me, because that is my biggest stress.
Yeah, that's the one thing about being the practice owner, is that
Yeah.
all that is on your shoulders, and sometimes you wish you could just treat animals. You didn't have to worry about that, right?
Yeah, I wish it
And
was
we
that
sort
simple.
of, yeah, and as you grow your business, you sort of, I mean, if I think about myself, I had to pull away more and more and more from doing actually what I loved, and ended up
Hard.
having to do all that management stuff, which you sort of start to feel like this is not what I want to be doing. But you can hire people, so that's the thing. So I think that's what you got to do. You got to find that practice manager with some business skills that can help you to be able to do that, and they are out there. You just got to find them.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody that lives close, because the traffic is just horrendous.
Have you got bad traffic? Yeah, I must say, during COVID, I mean, we had 2 years with hardly any traffic, and things sort of seem to have sort of opened up, and it feels to me like everyone is going back to work. Nobody's working remotely anymore. So what used to take like half an hour to get my kids to school is like an hour now to get my kids to school.
It's crazy. And you're not traveling that far even. Yeah?
Well, my kids go to school in Cape Town, so it is quite far. So
okay, from where you stay,
it is quite far. So, but it's on the highway. We go past you guys, into town.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, one of the reasons I approached Blue Cross, firstly because they were bilateral, they were equine and small animal practice. So, but also at that time, my children were going to go to a primary school like 2 kilometers to the right of it, and they went to high school 2 kilometers on the other side of the school. So that was like definitely a big help for me during the school years anyway.
How old are your kids now?
21 and 19.
Okay, so they finished school already.
Yeah, they're not even at home anymore. One's in England and one's in Diggs.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So how do you work all the hours? So with your therapist, I mean, so like how many days a week do you work consulting, and how do you split up your time doing management and things like that? And what are the hours for your staff, particularly the therapists I'm talking about now?
Yeah. So we are open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday. We stopped working Saturdays through COVID because there actually wasn't a demand really, because people were at home and they were much more flexible. We've kept the Saturday closed. We have the option to open at any time. And if any therapist wants to do a bit of extra work or see a patient, that we can't fit anywhere else, they're welcome to use the facility. But I'm quite big on not overloading everybody. So I'm trying to think, there's no therapist that works every day of the week. Sometimes they do half days, sometimes they do full days. So that's why our team's quite big. It's not like we're seeing so many patients. It's just really to protect everybody from patient fatigue, and the physicality of the work is not insignificant, particularly if you've got a busy day in the treadmill and you're going in with dogs a lot. You've got to be quite fit. So I know now, like I've had 2 prolapse discs in the last 5 years, and definitely work related to a point. And my joints are a little bit sore now and things. So I know that we can't like sustain forever and ever to do this physical work. And I like people to have work-life balance. So some people will come in for a full day. Some people do like half a day every day of the week. Some people do, like, for example, our OT, she's also lecturing at UCT. So she doesn't work full time. She does a couple of shifts as well. So I try and keep the shifts at least a half day. So it's worth coming in. There's enough patients for them to see. And then at Peninsula Vet, I'm actually not open every day yet because we don't have enough therapists to carry that work. And we've got we've got 4 people who travel quite far, like they're from the northern suburbs. And so even with them, with the traffic, they only start at 9:30 because the traffic, they can leave home at 6 and they don't get to work at 8 a.m. They're still late.
Sure.
So we've just kind of cut the day a little bit shorter here and there.
Yeah.
So it's all spread out. And then we've got 1 or 2 people who are quite willing to locum. They know the practice, that they can step in if we give them enough notice. So that also helps. I never say no to, I don't think I've ever said no to leave. If somebody asks for leave, they must take it,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think having been in the field for as long as you have, you're familiar with burnout because it happens, and a lot of us, especially in South Africa in those early days, when we didn't have people to employ, we were very, very close. I mean, myself included, have been very close to burnout. So that work-life balance is so, so important.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And you know what, your kids are only there for a little while, hey? I mean, if I look back, I wish I had not worked quite so many hours. Because it just flies by and they go through all these phases and it's only there for a little bit and that phase is gone. It's never coming back again. So I guess, I mean, it's all fine, but
as a working mom,
you have to make space for that.
Yeah, it's one of our challenges to try and get that mom and work balance right.
Yeah.
So how is it set up, the business? Like, do you rent space for them or are they partners in your business? I mean, because that's one of the things that when we try and find a location, especially within a vet practice, I think that other therapists would be thinking like, how am I going to set this up? So how is yours set up and what were the other options that you thought of? And maybe they made you some other offers.
So I've got 2 different types of setups, 2 different practices. So one practice is, it's a joint venture with regard to the actual treadmill. So that helped me to not have to pay the full price for it. And also incentivized the vets in theory that they would refer because they have a financial benefit in terms of the numbers of treadmills we can do. So that was what I proposed to the vets. So we negotiated that. And so that's the arrangement of one practice. The other practice is I rent space. So where you were, I'm renting space and I pay my rent, have a base fee and I have a cap fee. And then it's based on turnover. So I have to give them my turnover figures and then they take a percentage of that.
Okay.
And so initially there was no cap and I said, you know what, if we are super busy, you guys are sitting pretty and you're doing absolutely nothing. So I said, no, there's got to be a cap to it. So that keeps it quite safe for me. I know what I'm in for every month. And if we do well, we earn more, we have to pay more, that's fine. I know the money's in that. Well, as long as all the clients pay, the money's in the bank. And so that kept me sort of like feeling comfortable. I don't like high risk with money. I don't really like borrowing money. So that's how I've done with those 2.
Do you invoice them like separately at that? So you invoice them and do you have your own card machine and take payments them or do they take the payments for both practices?
At the practice where they just take a percentage of turnover, I actually only do EFT billing just because of the cost. It's like the newer business of the 2 and just to keep costs down. And then we just have to keep it out that people are paying. So they're just EFT. So I've got no cost around that. And then, so my only risk is that their rent is based on what I invoice, not what I get paid. And so that's the only kind of little risk area. Yeah, so I don't go, so at the one practice, I don't go through their financial system, whereas the first practice where we've got this collaboration with the treadmill, it all goes through the practice and then I invoice them for work done.
Okay. And then the accounting and all of that, I heard that you had somebody in your team that is an accountant or something.
Yeah, she actually doesn't know.
She does
not her,
okay.
But she does help us with some calculations and things. But no, I have an accountant, and then I've quite recently, sort of just towards the end of last year, employed somebody just to check the payments are coming in and who do we need to chase up, because I didn't have that before. So I had no idea who had paid and who hadn't paid. I was just working my ass off and all of the whole team were. And I thought, no, hang on, this is crazy. And actually it was just as well because there were quite a few unpaid bills. Yeah. So she's that middle person at the moment.
Okay. So what are your biggest challenges, would you say, of running your own practice?
I think it's looking after the people, the team, I really want people to grow there. I don't want them, some will come and go, and that's just the way it is. Some will be a fit and some won't, and that's fine. But I really want to see people grow in the field. So I'm always asking them, what are you looking, what are your goals this year? What do you want to do? And it doesn't have to all be about work. And then also I meet with them probably 2 to 3 times a week independently, just to check in, what are you challenged by? How can this work? How can that work? So I'm quite people orientated with the staff, but probably to my own detriment. But I think I have this responsibility to give back the way what Claire gave me in the beginning. That was just the best training ever. And I think it is one of the best ways to train in this profession itself. There's so much to touch, feel, see, smell, it's all about those senses. It's not just about the science. It's really about that conversation with your hands and the animal and observations and using all your senses. And you just can't teach that in a textbook, or you just need to do it. You've got to do the work. And so I really like that aspect of the work. And I don't want to see this profession become too narrow. I really wanted to hang on to its history as well and see that, mingle.
I think it's a great topic, something that we can chat about maybe in another podcast.
Yeah.
If you look back at your journey in setting up your vet rehab practice, is there anything you would have done differently?
I think I would have asked for more help. I'm very much in my mind, I'm this little girl stamping my foot saying, I do it myself, and that's been my worst enemy. And I'm learning to ask for help and accept help, because when you get to this size, you can't do it on your own anymore. So it's hard for me to let go. It's my work's life in so many ways, through teaching and talking to people and treating and meeting people, or whatever, relationship building. But I can't sustain a practice this size without help. There's no ways. So last year was very tough, very chaotic, because we grew quickly because we needed to. And then there was the whole COVID environment. And then wow, how did we get to this? And we haven't got certain things in place, but it's quite fun. It's like an adventure. And I really do have amazing people who are willing to help and want to help. It's just me having to let go of my baby, I suppose.
I hear you. I completely hear you. I mean,
it's very big.
I have the same problems myself, letting go. But you just got to trust, right?
Exactly.
And when you've got a great team behind you, I mean, I'm very fortunate at Onlinepethealth. I've got an amazing team behind me. And, recently now, having just gone through maternity leave and having a baby, I had no option but just to let go. And I think my team actually enjoyed not having me there, because I think things were so much easier. They were like, I don't come and throw a spanner in the works where I'm like, what about this? What about this? And I'm sometimes a little bit, I have so many ideas and I want to do all these things. They were actually able in my maternity leave just to get on with a lot of stuff, and I had to let go, and I came back and things are probably running better than when I was there. So sometimes you got to just trust the people around you. You've chosen a great team, and just trust them to get on with it. So that you can continue to grow. Dawn, if you have any advice for the vet rehabbers that have just come into the field, what advice would you give them?
I would advise them to not work individually on their own. I think it's tough. I did it on my own for a long time, and it is tough. And sometimes it's very lonely, and sometimes you get stuck, or you tend to lose your confidence. Perhaps maybe you have a case that hasn't gone so well, and then in my experience, I would just go around my head. What did I do wrong? Did I not do enough? And all that. So it depends on the individual, but to have somebody to chat about a case with them, or to ask them to come in and see. So that's more my role now. I see a few patients, not as much as I used to, but if we have a meeting and there's a case, like a therapist, I don't know, or this owner is very difficult over, then I'll just say, well, why do you want me to come in and let's have a look together and just have another fresh set of eyes, or review the case and things. So that for me is hugely valuable, I think, at any stage, but particularly when you're a fresh graduate. And I would like to see more bigger practices. Like, how do we support these dogs that are paralyzed, like a big dog and had surgery and it's got to go home to the owner? It's not getting optimal care there. We're not optimizing the possibilities for this dog to recover fully and that sort of thing. So I'd like to see growth in those areas. And I'd like to see little clinics opening all over South Africa and just to expose people, even go and work somewhere like 2 days a week, or get out there and just create these little nodes all over. So my nodes are all very close to each other, but I don't have the capacity to set those up and travel all over the place to go somewhere else. But if we all do a little bit, then we could just it could just be so normalized. Like, of course you go to the vet and then you go to the physio straight afterwards, It's just be normal. Not like that. I can remember people often laughing at me saying, "You do what?" And I know they'd go after the dinner party and talk about, "Do you know that so-and-so took a dog to the physio?" And I just want to normalize it, like we do it for us.
Yeah,
so
no, exactly.
So I just want to be, I personally would love it to see it growing more. And it is definitely, I think it's still the biggest growth area of veterinary medicine, I think, unless I'm out of date. But there's so much more to do, so much potential. There's so much job potential if these bigger practices and you have rehab assist people in. Like that, we need everything. We need the mobile therapists and we need the bigger practice, and not just to the specialist. I specifically didn't go to a specialist facility. I wanted to go to a GP practice where the fat and arthritic Labrador would walk through the door and we could do something to help it, not the TPLOs and the hip replacements and blah, 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 everything. But anyway.
That's great advice. So, I just want to say to the listeners, if you guys are out there and you are alone, because a lot of you already are in mobile practices, we do have a mentor program that Onlinepethealth has set up, and it's through our Facebook groups, Animal Vetrehabbers, Hydro Vetrehabbers, Business Vetrehabbers, and Equine Vetrehabbers. And it's open to the whole community. So you don't have to be an Onlinepethealth member to benefit from the mentorship program. So guys, please go and check that out. I think it's the pinned post there, and applications are open once a year. You can basically apply, and then we try and find a mentor that is in your same time zone and someone that caters to your needs. So please go and check it out. I think March, April now is when we're getting applications, and you can apply anytime, but every year you need to apply again so that we can just make sure that we set people up with the correct people. So if you guys find yourselves alone, we've got you guys covered. Dawn, it's been so great chatting to you. And I'm looking forward to some future chats about some of the topics that you'd recommended as you chatted. You and I could chat for ages. I've had a lovely, lovely chat with you. And just, congratulations to everything that you've built. You've built an amazing practice and it's such a great team. And well done. I follow you guys on social media, and I love seeing all the pictures of your team. Everyone always looks very happy, and so do all the owners and animals. So well done for everything that you've achieved.
Thank you. Thanks for the chat. It's very, very nice.
Awesome, Dawn. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. And please, if you get a moment, head over to Stitcher or iTunes and leave me a review. It's a really lonely job being a podcaster, and so the only time I get to hear from you or know that you're out there is when I get a review. And know that I read every single one of your reviews. So to those of you that have left reviews, I want to say a very, very big thank you. Every time we get a review, it really helps to get the veterinary rehabilitation podcast out there to all the Vetrehabbers all over the world. All right, Vetrehabbers, so if you are looking for more continuing education in the field of veterinary rehabilitation, head over to onlinepethealth.com. Go be awesome, guys.